This is Beyond the Stand, the podcast that explores how music education is evolving. Each week, we sit down with educators, students, and leaders who are shaping the future of music learning, sharing practical tools and big ideas to help you inspire the next generation of musicians. Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Stand. I am thrilled to have Dr. David Dockan with me today. Dr. Dockan is an assistant professor of music education at LSU, and his work focuses on creating music classrooms where every student feels like they belong. Today, we're going to explore some important questions. Why might participation rates in music programs be declining? How can approaches like popular music education, democratic music education, and culturally relevant pedagogy help more students see themselves in our classrooms? And most importantly, how can we as teachers reclaim our agency and confidence to make these changes? David, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm excited to be here and excited to chat about popular music education, belonging, and all sorts of things.
Yeah, so just briefly, I kind of ask everybody this to start out, kind of a brief overview of your music education journey. How did you come up through the music education world?
My music education journey started with music happening around my home. My dad was a worship leader, and so I wanted to play music with him, and I learned keyboard, I learned guitar. One of my favorite musical memories is actually just playing in the basement of my grandparents' house in Minnesota and having a jam session where my uncle was like, "What's a song that you're like playing right now?" And I shared with him, "Gotta Find You" from Camp Rock, of course, because I was young at this time. And we started playing that song and we went with the chord progressions, and he's like, "Keep those chord progressions, like keep that going." And then all of a sudden we started making up verses. My grandma pulled out an accordion, my other uncle pulled out another guitar, and it just became this communal music making. And we were creating, we were composing, we were improvising. I'll never forget, like, some of the lyrics were about Britney Spears and like asparagus. And my cousin was like just riffing on, he was in like show choir things, but he was like riffing on asparagus. And we all went like, "Oh." And it was just a moment where I saw somebody taking the music that I was listening to, that was in my sonic world as a child, and using that as a gateway, as a pathway for us to make music together. And so I knew I always wanted to study music. I knew I always wanted to have music be a part of my life because it was so ingrained in my life growing up. And so I learned trumpet when the time was right, and that was in elementary school. And I had really excellent band directors. I had a really good music experience in Pittsburgh. And then I went to college and I was taking music theory courses, and I was like, "Oh, so this is like real music. This is the music that we got to do. This is, if we're going to know music, we got to know these things." And meanwhile, that was very different from the world that I had experienced growing up. And so when I came home and I was talking to my dad, like, "You don't know music theory, so you don't really know music." And I'll never forget like the hurt that caused and that damage to that identity, because I had been ingrained and cultured into this new world of what music education, or what music was. And ever since that moment, I've been reflecting a lot. And when I was in my undergrad, my senior year, Dr. Martina Vassal was a PhD student at the time at West Virginia University, and she presented on how we could use popular music as a means to music education. And I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is what music is to me. This is what I think music education could look like." And so she helped me do a songwriting unit in my student teaching. We did, and we kept in touch over the years. I went to Kent State, did my master's, and really dug into the informal music learning and the Lucy Green work, and how do popular musicians learn, and what's different about that versus what's happening in the conservatory setting and in K-12 settings. And me and Dr. Vassal stayed in touch, and then I ended up going to University of Kentucky, where she is, and doing my PhD there, continuing my studies in this. But while I was in the classroom, I saw how using informal music learning and using music technology and amplifying students' musical identities was so helpful in getting them engaged in wanting to participate in music making. And I was a elementary music teacher, I was a middle school choir director, but I realized like we're just teaching music in general. And sure, we'll have a performance. We can do like a song or two for the choir thing, but how can I provide opportunities for my students to engage? And so that was through like a cappella groups, through garage band, through musicals, because they were really into musicals. And so really amplifying students' musical identities was so successful and really helpful in my journey as a teacher. And so my journey continues into the PhD world, where I'm studying and researching and doing workshops on how to incorporate popular music pedagogies and informal music learning into the classroom. And as I was there, I realized like some teachers don't feel as though they can incorporate these things into their
Right.
classrooms, be it because there's structures in place or there are policies or there are this, that, or the other. And so I decided to do my dissertation on teacher agency and investigating how can teachers feel like they're empowered. The definition of agency being the capacity to exert power, act, or cause change. How can we get teachers to feel this agency in their classroom so that they can make
Mm-hmm.
changes? And that was enlightening to see and to investigate. And I guess we'll talk about that later, based on your intro questions. But
Yeah.
now I work here at LSU. I teach undergraduate courses in elementary music education. I am teaching a commercial music techniques course next semester. I teach a teaching music in diverse settings course for undergrads, and also do graduate work in popular music seminar I did last year, and this year I'm teaching foundations of music education. And so I get to do a lot of things here, and it's great. And I have great colleagues, and we're all thinking about making the world. What's the future of music education?
Right. Right. And so I guess boiling down to, you talked about, having your musical voice, and having your students be able to express their musical voice. So, this is what we kind of look at as the problem. Why do you think that we have a situation in music education today where students don't necessarily feel like they belong in the music classroom? And I hate to think about that because the band room was always the place that I felt like I most belong. It was the safest place. And to think that there might be students that don't feel like they fit in the music classroom. Why do you think that is?
It's a great question. And I do plan to investigate that more as I continue in this work. But thinking about belonging, the need to belong is we have an inherent human need to feel a sense of deep connection to other people and to places. And there's the need to belong, but then there's the sense of belonging, which is context specific. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying like music education needs to solve everyone's inherent need to belong in the entire world, but how can we foster and facilitate places in the school for students to have a sense of belonging in the
Mm-hmm.
classrooms? And so to think about that, the sense of belonging has 4 different categories attached to it. So we think about competencies, like what skills do students have to engage and to feel like they belong? What opportunities do students have? So what doors are there for students to open to feel like they belong? What perceptions do they have of these spaces? How do they perceive what is happening in these classrooms to feel like they belong? And then finally, are they motivated to belong? To feel
Mm-hmm.
like you belong, you have to want to belong. So,
Right. Right.
and then all of that happens within the scope of the social, cultural, and environmental and temporal worlds that we exist in. There's no way to separate what's happening outside of the school versus what's happening inside the school. We all live in the context. We didn't fall out of a coconut tree, as Vice President Harris said. We exist in
Right.
the context of the world that we live in. And so when we think about those aspects, I wonder what students' perceptions are, and I wonder what competencies students feel like they have or don't have to be in music classrooms. Do they think it's too late? I didn't start band in 5th
Mm.
grade, so I can't do it now. Or do they perceive it to be a place that doesn't match their definition of what music is? What's Yeah, so when we think about who is in the classroom that we are teaching, who is in these music spaces, we have a lot of research to say that it's predominantly a white space, and it's predominantly a
Mm-hmm.
space that has more affluent populations. And when we think about what other what we're teaching in those classes. It's very much like band, choir, orchestra. And
Right.
what are those like what music do we listen to outside of the classroom? I mean, for me, I'm listening to Lil Nas X, I'm listening to Beyonce. Those are my musical worlds that I live in. Um, and so for our students, what's that connection? What's that like value aspect of taking music? And I think also just like this is a little tangent. Something I'm thinking
Okay.
about right now is that like I don't I don't I don't know if we have a declining rate of music participation. I haven't seen stats on that, but I know that we have about 20 to 25% of students participate in music coursework. And so when we think about that right now, and we think about the history of music education, and like Sputnik happened, and then, oh, we went to like an essentialism approach. Now we're in this moment of like, oh, COVID happened. So we're going to focus on
Hmm.
those sciences again. And then we have this, a climate of wanting to focus on trades and of other things than the arts. What's the
Right.
value of arts education? And so there's a multifactorial thing happening here.
Right.
But thinking about the belonging part of it, I think my biggest question is what are we doing as music teachers to create a space where we can have more than 20% of the population in our schools participating? What's the music of those other 80% of kids that we could incorporate into our programs and create, help them to participate in music? And where, what what are the music making opportunities that exist within our areas? I am new to Louisiana.
Hmm.
I'm from Pittsburgh. I now teach in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's a very different musical culture down here
Right.
of how people participate in music making. And you just walk the streets of New Orleans. Like I went to Jazz Fest last year, and the best part of it was leaving Jazz Fest and seeing people just making music on the streets, dancing, improvising, and just pulling up with an instrument, be like, "Hi, let's play," and it was a magical moment. So then, how can we be responsive to the contexts of our students' lives? And like, for instance, what are music teachers in Louisiana doing to prepare students for those types of musical engagements? I don't know that answer. And I'm sure there are some amazing teachers doing some really cool things, especially in New
Hmm.
Orleans. Um, and I'm excited to learn even more about that. Anyway, I feel like I really went on a tangent there.
No, that's great. I think, and in talking, I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with Shane Calhoun. Of he talked about the other 80%, um, and what are we doing to reach those students, but also talked about this idea of kind of meeting the students where they are, but it can be like a bait and switch. It's hey, the music that you are engaging in outside of class is valuable, but when we bring them into our band, choir, or orchestra class, we immediately switch them to the Western classical model, and then the music that they're bringing in that isn't necessarily seen as value. But I like the idea of thinking about the sense of belonging and actually um, having students come into our classes and utilizing the music that they are engaging with to actually provide their music education, and to show that it can be done. And I think the idea of having students feel like they belong in our classroom hinges on that, of saying the music they are actively engaging in right now is important, it is valuable, and um, yeah, it can help them have that sense of belonging, if that makes sense.
Yeah, how can we validate their musical identities and have that be the avenue of education? Why do we have to use like I just pulling a random thing? Why does English folk song suite have to be played or whole second suite in F? Why are those the things that our curriculums hinge on? And if even for more like modern things, that's fantastic that we're growing and developing that repertoire of what band music incorporates or what orchestral or choir music incorporates. But what does it do? I'm curious what a student's perception is if we take
Hmm.
that popular music and just like just the song part. It's like, okay, we got this arrangement of it for band now. And instead of like under my umbrella, it's like under my umbrella. Ella, like just quantizing it and making it like square. And how can we make it more not just the repertoire that we're using and have their musical identities represented through like, well, we did the pop show, we did that, and it was um we did it real quickly. It was the fun show. But then how could we use that then as a launching board of for students to create with it, to students to perform with it, for students to do all those artistic processes we talk about in the National Core Arts Standards. We can do all of that with it, but we can also do that through a sense of belonging, through fostering that sense of belonging. And instead of just doing the repertoire within the band thing, what if we had them do small ensembles where they created their own music and democratize the process of, sure, make some groups, select a piece of music and have it be, you have like the class period today, arrange a song of your choice and we'll play it at the end. And then, the teacher can go around and facilitate and push them in different ways, have them talk about the different concepts that they could apply there. And why can't we do that? I mean, we can, I think, is the answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so kind of in the intro there, I mentioned, we talked about popular music education, democratic music education, and culturally relevant pedagogy. So can you kind of, for people that might not have heard of those things specifically, I know, again, the reason I'm doing this podcast is because I came from the band world, strictly middle school and high school band, and got this gig that was strictly commercial music and said, how do I take all this education that I have to teach the whole suite and then translate that in a meaningful way to this popular music world and not, try to tell the kids what they're already doing is, the classical method that is music, what you guys are doing might not be as relevant, right? I'm trying not to do that. So I say all that to say, I had not heard the term democratic music education. So yeah, if you don't mind, just kind of go through those and.
Yeah. So democracy in music education, just to get to clarify it off the front, it is not a political party. It is it is just thinking about it comes from the Greek kratos, meaning power, and demo, the people. So power to the people. Who are the people in our classrooms? They are our students and the teacher. And so how can we share the power with our students in the classroom? And so that's democratizing that process, the music teaching and learning process. And there's a great book, Remixing the Classroom. Randall Everett Alsop talks about finding these openings for our students. And I always found it hard to conceptualize, well, what are these openings? And so I found this framework of spaces in the music classroom that I think really help to figure out places that we can share power with our students. And so a democratic classroom has the 3 spaces of rules and procedures. So how are we running the classroom? Mm-hmm. The curriculum and repertoire. So what music are we learning? What concepts are we learning? What type of ensembles are we doing? And then the pedagogy. How are we learning it and how are we teaching it? And so we can share power in all 3 of these spaces. And so the rules and procedures, you could have the students work with you to develop what are the norms that we want for this classroom? What are how do you feel like we should treat each other on a day-to-day basis? How do you feel like we should maybe operationalize these PBIS rules, like positive behavior intervention systems, school-wide rules? What does that look like in the classroom? Mm-hmm. And creating a shared understanding, co-constructing these rules and procedures. And what I did a case study of a few elementary music teachers doing this. So this is K through 5. And okay. They said, like, one of the big fears in the world is like, but we'll lose control. Like, if you let the kids have power in the rules and procedures, they're going to take over and like, it'll be chaos. And what the teachers actually found is that the students had created these communities of accountability and they were holding each other accountable because they knew like they created these rules together. And this was like, they had themselves in these rules. At least that was the teacher's perceptions of it. So that's the rules and the procedures and all the procedures. Like, we have to go to the xylophones today in elementary class. How can we do that without, like, they're expensive and I can't afford to get a new one. What is something that we can do together to make sure we get there and have them problem solve it and figure it out on their own like with your guidance. And then, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So they told me what we need to do. They're going to remember it better. Did it take more time? Yes. But is it going to go more smoothly? Theoretically, yes. According to these teachers, it does. I would love to get a larger sample to have more data to share with y'all on that. But so that's the rules and the procedures. Then when we're thinking about the curriculum and repertoire, it's thinking about the getting student input, then teachers curating that student input, and then selecting that music.
Hmm.
A fear that I hear a lot is like, but what if it's bad? What if the music's like dirty? And you know, I say that sometimes there is rough content in music. There's sex, there's drugs, there's cursing, all these things. Country music can be tough, and
Mm-hmm.
it's there's a lot of negative things out there. So teachers have always had to curate music. And the idea of, oh, sure, there is Baroque music that is so dirty uh, that we just wouldn't use, but still written by Henry Purcell. We would still use
Mm-hmm.
music by Henry Purcell in our choirs, but we probably wouldn't do. He has a tune called like Sir Walter and His Damsel or something, and we just wouldn't do that with our kids. Just like
Right.
Justin Timberlake, sure, he's got Sexy Back, but he's also got Can't Stop the Feeling. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
can use some of them, but not others. Um, so it's all about curation and understanding your community and understanding what your students can do. Like, for instance, if I'm teaching at a public school right now, I'm teaching a modern band at our lab school on campus. Thinking about that school and the great opportunities they're giving me, I would be like, oh, Forrest Frank, great, let's do it here.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I were in a public school, I probably wouldn't do that because I wouldn't want to be imposing any religion onto my students.
Right.
So, and also it's coming from the students. So that's the curriculum and repertoire part. Asking the students, what are y'all listening to? What are y'all doing? What do you enjoy? And then teacher curating it. And then as you're curating it, you're listening to that music. Go like, ooh, what can I teach through this? What musical skills and concepts do I need
Mm-hmm.
to talk about throughout the year? Um, so another song that my lab school wanted was Callin' Baton Rouge. It is a Garth Brooks song that I had
Yep.
never heard before moving here.
Oh, wow.
And it is a song of this area. But the students love that. And so I listened to the song. I realized, oh, I can take this part of the song. It's all one chord. I can make it a G chord. And that's that's the next chord I want them to learn. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
going to go, operator, why don't you put me on through? And we're just going to learn that G chord, practice that hand position, get it firmly in our hands, and use that as the student selected music, figured out what part of the curriculum it fits in, and then integrated it into that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the curriculum and the repertoire part. Now we go into the pedagogy part. And for me, a huge goal I have is I want them to not need me as a teacher. I want my students to be lifelong musicians and be able to take what I give them or take what we build together and take that on for eternity and go on Ultimate Guitar and find a tab. And so we need to think about developing pedagogical agency in our students. How can
Mm-hmm.
they start learning how to teach themselves? And so the example I'm going to use is again the Callin' Baton Rouge. We had the G chord we were learning, and we had the E minor chord that they knew. Created a worksheet of like, okay, we have these two chords, then we have this new chord here. See if you can figure it out, and then see if you can put it with this new song. And the song was the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse theme song because that's also what they
Okay.
wanted.
Yeah.
And so then they were piecing it together and making it like a puzzle almost like, oh, we need to figure out this chord. How can
Mm-hmm.
okay, the dots mean this. I need to build the D chord. Okay. Now we do D and G at these times and then come together again at the end. So kind of doing a tier 1 instruction that Callin' Baton Rouge was like tier 1 instruction. And then, okay, tier 2, how can we give them some independence? And I can still be there to help. And then finally that tier 3 instruction, getting them more independent was me having them write songs with those chords that we use throughout the
Mm-hmm.
day. And so that's to me a portrait of democratic music education, thinking about the rules and the procedures of the class. Those run, if you think of it like a bicycle, like a tandem bike with the
Mm-hmm.
teacher and the students, both of y'all power the classroom through the rules and the procedures. If you don't agree on that, you're going to lock up your gears and not go too far. But once you agree on that, then curate that music, get the student suggestions, find the musical concepts you want to teach, and then implement it into your pedagogy. And again, the goal is less me. I want to make as few decisions as possible. I want to help teach my students. And that actually creates more bandwidth to me to teach my students. If I get them to start teaching themselves, I can then help more students and provide more individualized instruction. So that's, to me, democratic music education, sharing power with your students, creating a less teacher using power over students and using power with your students.
Yeah, that's really encouraging to me because I feel, especially this year after, going to the APME conference and interacting with the people there and really trying to shift my classroom to that kind of without knowing, the term, but really kind of shifting things and giving the students that agency to really buy in and bring what they have to the table. And with my popular music ensemble, I've split it into two bands really, and just having them, I'm giving them, form sheets to help them, figure out songs and listen to songs and kind of pull what they need out of their part. But everything as far as what we're playing, it's coming from them. And that's what I'm starting to see on the belonging piece. The buy-in for them is something that they're coming in, and it's music that means something to them. It's music that expresses themselves, and and I'm able to teach the music that they need to know, but it's through music that they are engaging with. And so I'm still working on. You talk about having you make as few decisions as possible. Um, I still kind of want to have my hands on things a little bit. So I'm like, am I even doing my job? But then when I see them picking out a song and then I'm working with other students and then I come back to a group and they figured out their one group wanted to play Come Out and Play by The Offspring. Which lyrically, I actually read the lyrics and I was like, when I was listening to this when this song came out, I had no clue that this was what this song was about. But there's some interesting use of modes in there, and it's just kind of a punk tune. But you've got some modal things in there that I'm like, and they figured it out on their own. They don't know that the fact that there's a half step in the first two notes of the scale is different than anything else. They just know it goes that's all they know, and they figured it out. But then I can say, hey, that actually is different than our normal major or minor scale, and you're doing different things. So it's encouraging to hear you walk through that, and it just makes sense how using these kind of techniques, this kind of pedagogy helps our students feel like they belong, have that sense of belonging in our classrooms. And I've noticed, so when we think about, we're using popular music education, we're moving towards the democratic model. A lot of my guests, when we've talked about popular music education, a lot of people have said, when it comes to PME and traditional music education, it's really a both and our popular music education programs or use of that in our classrooms can help complement rather than replace our traditional ensemble instruction. So, how do you think using these things to create this sense of belonging can help to do that, can help supplement our traditional music education so we grow these well-rounded musicians?
So I think it's, first off, love that they're playing Come Out and Play. Love the pulling in the modes and like thinking about that. I just wanted to like comment on like how cool it is to be able to be then that teacher of like, oh, this is really cool. Oh, I just noticed this. Like, do you see this? Isn't that neat? This is actually different than what we usually do. Like, and have it be an organic way of learning things as opposed to like, all right, day 5 modes. Modes start on different scale degrees. This is Ionian. And yeah, and have it be just a natural thing to come up. I don't know how else to make modes come up naturally, besides doing
Right.
it through active music participation. And you, I really do forget the question you asked, but I wanted to not to interview you, but I'm
No, it's great.
curious as to what was the shift for you in your you were talking about being the band director, having those things, and that you still have this like vision of what you should be doing. And I think "should's" a dirty word.
Right,
Um,
right.
it's I had a professor say, "Don't shit on yourself." And I was living at UK.
I'm gonna use that.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
But how did you navigate this shift
Yeah.
into?
So I've told this story a few times on the podcast. As far as what made me start realizing that this sense of belonging, right? I was at a 6 through 12 school, just middle and high school band, and the short story of it is a senior was going to graduate. I'd never met him. Very small school, very small, and he was going to go major in guitar performance at UAH, University of Alabama, Huntsville, and I had never met him. And this is my first year teaching there. And I grabbed the principal and I said, "Why don't I know him?" And he said, "Because he's not going to be in marching band." And so I was like, oh, if that's, I wanted the perception to be, this is music at this school. And the perception was that if you weren't in marching band, you didn't participate in music. So after the principal said, he's not going to be in marching band, and I wanted the perception of music at this school to be, if you're involved in music, you belong in the band room, in the music program. That was the shift of saying, I need to do something to help these students belong, because they have this perception that music at the school is only marching band. So that's when I bought some Squire guitars and basses, pulled a drum set out of the closet and said, "Hey, if you play, come on in. And even if you're not going to be in band class, like I want to have you." So fast forward to getting the position I'm in now, which is at an independent school. It's the leader of the commercial music ensemble, which is the reason that I was looked at for this is because of my Army band experience. Which the Army bands nowadays are splitting into smaller groups to play pop music. So that kind of helped me get into this gig. But what I found was I was still trying to band direct. We're going to play these songs. We're going to play these standards that are, and I found, I did find myself, oh yeah, 1, 2, ready, go, all these things. I felt really cool. But when it really shifted within this position was both working on my master's. We had to do some writing on what it means as a teacher to become irrelevant. And how, as teachers, our goals should be to become irrelevant, and for our students to take the torch and move forward. And I was like, man, am I really trying to do that? Or am I really trying to keep a tight grasp on things? And I was, and it really again shifted for me. We did a series of lunch concerts. We have a stage in our lunchroom, and I had 2 groups. One group, they just had kind of a vibe going with the stuff they were playing. They were playing some stuff from the 90s, some kind of alternative things they were playing. And I was like, you know what? You guys do that for your lunch set. And then I had this group that was more, I would say they were more advanced as far as skill level. And I basically gave them a wedding band set. So they were playing, good stuff. They were playing Michael Jackson, Toto. They were playing this stuff. But what I noticed was in the cafeteria, the group that did the 90s alternative stuff, the whole cafeteria was singing with them. Like it was an experience, like it was a crowd participation. Everybody was excited. The wedding band set, which is all these, what I would consider great pop songs. People were like, yeah, it was great. but they were just eating their lunch and going about their business. And I was like, well, there's something to that. If the students actually have a pulse on what their audience wants to hear. And I have my perception of what I think the audience wants to hear. So what's going to happen if I actually turn it over to them? So I had this plan for this year to do a big prog rock theme. And then I came in and I said, guys, I'm going to switch it up. If you want to do the prog rock, you can. But I'm going to really say, get within your group and you kind of decide how you want your group to function and what you want to move forward with. And it's been great. What I do find is that I am becoming irrelevant because I really am just making sure they have everything they need. If something like the modes comes up, I'm like, guys, this is really cool. But otherwise, when it comes to actually learning the music, I'm trying to help give them more tools than just going to Ultimate Guitar. I'm trying to say, are there ways you can do this on your own to categorize things so you're not dependent on that technology? But also you can use the technology. So I'm still in that shift because I still like, what do I do with my hands? Yeah. So it's been a wild ride. And then to talk to more people through the podcast to say what you're doing actually is music education, because there is that worry of what should I be doing? What are the expectations? And I've had a few people, and Shane Calhoun is one of them. He was like, so what should you do? Who is saying that you should do this? And I'm like, well, there really is, like, there's the perceived expectation that I have with years of my education, but really nobody is in the background saying you need to do it this way. And as long, especially when it comes to my school, are the kids growing musically? Do they have a place where they belong? That's the big thing. It's like, in their day with this incredibly rigorous schedule, do they have a place where they feel they belong and they can express themselves? And that's what I'm trying to do with my ensembles, with my guitar class, with my music through technology class. It's like, guys, my concern is that you guys walk in this room, take a deep breath, and then you create. And it is, as long as it's authentic and it's you, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to say, well, when you made this beat in Soundtrap, it was really odd that you displaced this thing by this 16th note. So that's not like how it's done. So we're going to take a few points off from that. It's like, oh, why'd you do that? Well, I like the way that felt. Okay, well, great. You created that. That's all I ask you to do is create something that's you. So yeah, it's been exciting, a little scary. But I feel what's encouraging is I feel like I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. And I'm slowly gaining that confidence to be like, yes, this is the right thing to do. And the students are growing and doing well because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always love some Shane Calhoun in my ear of who's telling you that? Let me talk to him.
Yeah.
And when you think about like everything that you just said, and you think about what we're told that we are supposed to do as music educators, like what are the performing arts standards, like National Core Arts Standards? That's the 4 artistic processes of performing, connecting, responding, and creating. Are they doing those things? They're connecting to their audiences, or they're responding to their audiences because they are understanding what their students want to hear, or what their their audience wants to hear.
Right.
They're creating, they're performing, they're creating their own arrangements of these songs. They're creating their own, I'm assuming they're creating their own beats too from your DAW project that you were just talking about.
Right.
Which also, if you listen to some beats that Pharrell made, gosh, they're like so weird. And like, imagine a teacher being like, no, Pharrell, you did not do ta ta ti ti ta the exact way that we needed it to be. So I need you to redo that for this, because we don't go outside those boxes.
Right.
And honestly, like, who are they gonna hurt? Like, is anyone gonna get hurt by creating a really cool beat that's not something that we've done before? something that I've been challenging students recently is like, okay, cool, AI's there, sure. Make something AI wouldn't make.
Hmm.
Like AI is built on a process of like predictions, and you ask it to do something, and it's going to give you blah 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 blah. This is the most probable answer that would happen in the world. But what if you change the script, do something
Mm-hmm.
that isn't predictable? And I've had some really cool avant-garde pop arrangements
Yeah.
of like taking opta and playing the words on like clicking, and then just there was one group that did a like just improvising on
Mm-hmm.
the sounds of it, and it was just fascinating. It was interesting. And so how can we allow ourselves to give those students that freedom? And we have that fear, as you said, of like, oh, I put in quotes, like, according to who? You should, if anything, the only should that needs to happen is you should be helping your students grow in music.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing that, great. What avenue you take is really up to you. And I always love the idea of we teach music. We don't teach band, we don't teach choir, we don't teach orchestra. We teach music by the means of choir. We teach music by the means of modern band.
Mm-hmm.
We teach music by the means of music technology. And so we're music teachers. We are like I don't like the label director for me. That's just a me
Okay.
thing. If y'all like it, if you like it, you like it. That's great. If you like it, I love it. That's live your life. But I think we are music teachers, and how are we teaching our students music? And that can happen by any means. And when we allow our students to see the means of music making that they see in the world, then that's more approachable of like, oh, I could do that. Oh, that's my identity as a musician. Oh, I want to be a DJ. We can DJ as a means of music making. Awesome. I am there. And yeah, so thinking about the question of how do we get teachers to get rid of this should monster,
Mm-hmm.
and to give them the power, make teachers feel empowered. Um, I think that's the magical key to all this. How can we empower teachers to feel like they're change makers in this music education ecosystem? And what in my dissertation, what I found was that teachers do feel limited by the divisive concept laws that are happening around the country of like, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about this.
Right.
And it was really confounding if that was like the teacher's identity of like, oh, I can't talk about sexuality or attractionality, and I am a gay teacher. That's my
Mm-hmm.
identity that I can't talk about with my students. And that was what one of my participants talked about. And so it was, so there are things limiting agency for sure.
Right.
And like limiting what teachers can do. But what I found was that teachers who remained curious about what they could do are the teachers that had agency.
Hmm.
When they were saying, what if I did this? Or what is the reason I don't have 80% of the population in here? Or what is something I could do to incorporate rock band into my classroom? Or how could I learn this? And so going to professional developments, going to trainings, going to getting a master's degree, like
Yeah.
doing these things to expand their understanding of what music education could be was one of those ways. It's remaining curious. If we don't remain curious and we just are like, all right, I am going to do what I did and not think for myself, and you know what? If that is what you have the capacity for in this day and age, I totally get it.
Right.
If you're thinking about making change and you want to be a change maker, start being curious. Start being curious about what you can do in the classroom. There are barriers to everything. For me to go to my car, I have to walk down the street to go get there. Now, what if I'm feeling really tired? Am I just going to stay in my office for the entire night? No, I am going to probably find one of those scooters on campus to help me get to my car. And I can remain curious of how else could I get to my car? And so what is your car? What is your goal for
Mm-hmm.
your students? And if you have a goal and a vision of what you're looking for, and if that's like one's at State Festival, that's cool. If it is getting students to actively participate in music, increase participation in your programs, and create a music education that represents the music industry today and the musical interests and identities of your students, then ask questions. well, why do I have to have this section of music appreciation that doesn't do any music making?
Hmm.
What if that became like intro to guitar for a year?
Right.
Or what if it was intro to modern band? Um, and as you were saying earlier, the yes and of it, like band, choir, orchestra, great. It's working really, really well for the 20%. I don't want to take that away from anybody. I
Hmm.
loved my marching band experience. I don't want to like, don't get it twisted. I
Right.
love playing my trumpet. It was a great time. And those do foster a sense of belonging for students. And a lot of that's through the peer networks that they create. They find people
Hmm.
that are interested in music. Cool. I like that too. The structural features of like the rituals that we have and the vernacular and jargon that we get of like, oh, okay, we're walking in, we have the routine of warm-ups. And we're like, tee, we're all doing this together. And we get like encultured into that. And that fosters a sense of belonging. And they have those trips that like, I wonder if those trips start to like foster a sense of belonging.
Right.
Is it because of the musical aspects or is it because of the opportunity? Now, some researchers did find that those trips, though, based on identity, did not foster a sense of belonging. For instance, if students were there was a study done on like a border state, and there were some students who were Latin,
Hmm.
and when they were traveling with folks, they were like, "Oh, if I'm traveling away from my family, and like I might get stopped by
Oh,
a
wow.
immigrations, and they might get like." There's like other things that students are thinking about.
Right.
And so we have to think about that as teachers. That's kind of a tangent,
Hmm.
but it's something I hadn't thought about till I had read that study. Um, and so just, yeah, thinking about there are so many ways that we help that 20% of students feel a sense of belonging in the music classroom. What can we do for those other 80%? And yeah, I, I'm just rambling at
No,
this
it's
point,
not.
I think.
It's really great. Yeah, because what we want to there are those students who are going to be in choir and orchestra and band, and like I was that guy. I was all in trumpet player as well, and yeah,
Go
yeah, that's
trumpets.
right. It's the way it ought to be. So, but no, so that was my world, and I fit well in that world. I know of so many musicians in my high school that didn't feel like they belonged in band, and they still do music. Actually, one of them now, he's a middle school English teacher, and because of the way they, had to structure the band director position, he now is directing the band, and he was just in a rock band that performed a lot. Um in high school and afterwards, and now they're like, hey, we need the band program to continue. They didn't get somebody in the position, so he is currently taking that on, and
Mm,
I'm trying to help him out as well and say, hey, you don't have to fit into the box to lead a music program at the school. Like, the school can have a
yeah.
meaningful music experience, and it doesn't have to be marching band. Um, there are kids that want to march and they still go to the football games and they play, and it's great, but you can still have very meaningful experience and not be within that box. So yeah, all of this is really great, and I think what helps too is talking about the democratic music education model is that's very practical, in thinking about a teacher who is curious and wanting to make that shift. It is very much a how do I do that? And when we talk about giving the teachers agency, like it is a detailed way to think about that. But even so, if there is a teacher listening that would want to start this tomorrow, what's a small but powerful first step that you think they could take?
Be curious. Ask your students, like, what are y'all listening to? How do you engage with it? Oh, maybe I could do a movement exercise for elementary
Hmm.
school. Like, let's choreograph a dance to this. Like, we've done all these folk dances.
Hmm.
We have all these moves. Here's the song. How many beats are we hearing here in this phrase? Cool, let's add dance moves to it. If you're trying to do something for like your secondary ensembles, maybe have your students figure out a melody on their instruments and like, ooh, let's just listen to this song that you picked. And okay, so there's the melody. Can you figure it out on your instruments? Can we all sing it first, then put it on our instruments? And just like, ooh, okay. drum percussion, can we add like the beat to it? Like, how does that fit in? And like, just build something with your ensemble together, like exploring something. And even if you just do it as like a warm up or like just as, give yourself the grace of like trying something new and experimenting, because teaching's a practice. Oftentimes I think we think of teaching as this, well, this is step one, step two, step three, step four. No, everyone's different. Every classroom is different. And so we should always be trying new things with our students. And like, if I taught the same thing every day, every year, I would cry. I would be so bored. And so just try something new and give yourself the grace. If it doesn't work out, try something different, and, or maybe try it again. And, you know, in a conservatory setting, we're often told that perfection is the goal, and perfection's not real. Nobody's perfect. As the great Miley Cyrus once said, nobody's perfect. We live and we work it again and again until we get it right. And if you can take that mindset with you, then I think that you'll be okay.
Starting with the students. It's a common theme. And
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. Well, and also I wanted to go back to something. When you said that you're a trumpet player, I was like, oh, I'm a trumpet player too. We had this like
Mm-hmm.
connection of like, there's something similar about us in our identities. It's like, if you're, even though like our experiences are probably vastly
Mm-hmm.
different, but we have this connection. And I'm thinking about like traveling abroad, and say you're in Europe and someone's like, I'm from America. And you're like, oh my gosh, me too. We're best friends, basically. Like, I'm going to trust everything you tell me about Europe
Mm-hmm.
because you're here. Like, we have a connection. Meanwhile, back at home, you probably wouldn't talk to that person, like, or you would never met them. And so there's that value still exists in the traditional ensemble, the Western art music ensemble. And I just thought that was an interesting moment of belonging
Oh
and
yeah,
feeling of connection, that we have in our identities. And how great if we can give that to more students.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, any thoughts? Anything else you in thinking about belonging, teacher agency, that you want to say for the people to listen to?
I think, my vision of the future of music education is more students making more music in more places. And any way that we can do that and be responsive to our students, make their learning relevant to their lives, and just empower them and just help them feel like they matter, in your classroom. We didn't really talk about mattering, and this might be just, you can cut this if this
No,
is
no,
just another
come on with
tangent,
it.
but
Come on with it.
sometimes, like, how many times have you heard a teacher say, or somebody say, I want my students to feel like they
Mm-hmm.
matter? But do you want them to really matter? Feeling like you matter is one thing, but what opportunities are you giving your students to have their voices really matter in the
Right.
classroom? If you ask, like, oh, what if we try this loud and soft? Which one do you like better? Like, great. And oh, but for the concert, we're going to do it this way because that's the way I want to do
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like, oh, so their voices matter in this context, but how can they matter in the grand scheme of things? And I think the more we can make students feel like their voices matter, feel like their identities matter, help them feel that sense of belonging in the classroom, help them perceive that they belong in these classrooms. And not just because, like, look, the football players in choir, you should be in choir. Like, oh, look, we're doing music that you
Mm-hmm.
enjoy and like that you identify with, and we're going to grow in those skills that you want to grow in. Like, that's amazing to me. Like, what a beautiful world that could be. Um, yeah, I wish I had like a quippy little line to end on.
Yeah, I don't think we need quip. Those
But
are
just
good
like,
things.
yeah, just validate your students' musical identities and know that they might be different than your own, and that that's okay. They still deserve a chance to be making music in schools.
Awesome. And how can people see what you're getting into, social media, or any projects you're currently working on that you're excited about?
Ah, always have things going on. So I am, if you want to find me, Instagram is at Dockan Music, Dockan Music. Dockanmusic.com is my website. Facebook.com/David Dockan, I think. You can find me there. Luckily, I am the only David Dockan in the world,
Well, there you go.
so just Google me and you'll find me. The Yeah, just I'm out there. We got some great things happening here at LSU. It's a great school, and we're thinking about the future. And so hopefully, if y'all are interested in LSU, send your kiddos down here. And it's truly a great program for undergrads and graduate and PhDs. So if you wanna come down, but yeah, we got good things happening. I'm not really good at this selling myself here on a
Yeah, there you
podcast.
go. Well, I'm learning about it too. So I appreciate you jumping on. And I tell you, this has been such a meaningful conversation. And just I really appreciate how you're helping us think about belonging, not just as a buzzword, but as a real framework for how we build music programs that meet students, really meets them where they are and stays with them there. So I think we've got a lot to think about, and I'm grateful for the work you're doing, and thank you for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for putting this all together. You're a rock star.
Well, we try. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Beyond the Stand. If you found today's conversation helpful, please share it with another music educator who might need it. You can also follow the show on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to support the production of Season 2 and help grow this community, you can contribute through our GoFundMe. You can find that link in the show notes. Together, we can make music education more engaging, inclusive, and inspiring for every student.